Good evening. Hi, everyone. We want to be respectful of your time this evening, so let's go ahead and get started. If we haven't had the chance to meet, I'm Jennifer Barrows, Associate Head of School and the Interim Director of College Counseling this year. I need to tell you that this year is like US's gift to me because I get to come back to the college world. I ran the lower school during COVID, and I've been deeply immersed in my associate head role, but I have secretly missed college counseling, which I know sounds maybe a little disturbing, but I promise it's all positive. And so getting to come back and be a part of the department this year is amazing. Terry, if you could go ahead. We're having a little technical difficulty, so we're going to do some hand changing of the slides. I'm here with the fabulous college counseling team, Caitlin Burnett, Jessica Q, and Terry Overton in the back. There she is waving. And we are excited to begin this process with you and your sons and looking forward to it very much. I'm going to start off tonight by sharing the 30,000-foot view in terms of the principles that families and boys need to be thinking about as you launch into the really active part of the college process this year. And again, we love to use the school motto to help us guide this process as well: responsibility, loyalty, and consideration. And so I want to say to the gentlemen in the room, but also to the parents, these are key ways of thinking about the process that we hope the boys can embrace and take on as they go through the next 2 years. First, if we think about the responsibilities inherent in this process, the biggest one, gentlemen, is to take ownership of this process. This process is not about having somebody else do it for you, because that would rob you of the chance to really learn about yourself in the ways that the college process grants you. Nothing else is like it in high school. And truly, you will be most successful if you can embrace it as a learning experience and a way to practice the skills that will make you a better student in college. You're going to do things like research your colleges to help you develop a balanced college list, and we'll talk lots about balancing a list, but basically having a list where you know some of the schools are schools that you have a pretty good chance of getting into. Some of the schools on your list may be more like a 50-50, and some of the schools will be what we call a reach, and that's okay. That whole list is a balanced list. But it's not about creating a list of all reaches or all foundationals as we term them. It's having that balance in there. Gentlemen, we're also going to ask you to manage your standardized testing process. So taking tests, figuring out which one you like more. I know that's like an oxymoron, but which test do you like more and want to pursue a little bit? We'll talk a lot about testing tonight so you can start on that path. And truly focusing on what you can control in this process and being able to practice the strategies that help you let go of what you can't. There are lots of parts of this process you can control, okay? Creating that list, paying attention to the research you've done and making good choices, ultimately choosing the college you will attend. There's only one part where you're not the person in charge, and that's when the colleges are making those decisions. Got to be able to let that part go. So those are some of the responsibilities. If we think about loyalty, there's a commitment that each of you has made to US, and often that is most apparent in the college process when all your years of work here come together and you have something to really show and share outside these walls about it. So going forward, and hopefully up to this point, you're going to do things like behave appropriately on social media. Colleges do check. Teams do check. Activities on campus as they seek to recruit you do check. So from here on out, this is not the time to test the waters with possibly sketchy messaging or photos. Keep that stuff off. You need to give your full effort in your classes. If you take APs in not only those classes, but in the resulting exams and in your college process work. This isn't something you do halfway. You need to commit fully to it. And above all, I think the most important part of showing loyalty in this process is really being thoughtful about everybody else going through it with you. You as a class will go through this together. You want to be supportive of decisions, because guys are going to make decisions that aren't the ones you would make, and that's okay. They're making the ones that are right for them. They're going to look at schools that maybe are or are not the kinds of schools you want to look at. And again, if that's the right school for them, that's okay. There are going to be high points in this process. There are going to be some rough points. If you can support your friends and be there for your class, that is probably the best reason to go through this together with them. Finally, consideration. Really adopting some attitudes up from the start that can help you make this a really good process. And the first one I'm going to say is probably the toughest one. And that I'm going to ask that you avoid comparisons to the college process of just about anybody else in your life. So don't compare your process to your friends. They're different people. They want different things in life. They have different life experiences to bring to the table. Don't compare it to your siblings or honestly your parents. The college world is a different game, even from what it was 2-3 years ago. This field changes like nothing else in education. And if you can just understand that you're in this to do it for yourself and try to avoid those comparisons that can really paralyze you or cause rifts where you don't want there to be, you will go through this process in a much smoother way. And we need you to consider the facts. You need to set priorities. You need to do work. This process is about doing work at certain times, whether it's filling out an application, taking a test, writing an essay, setting up a college interview, coming to a college meeting here at US. These are all things that you will have to work at. And it's okay. We are here to support you, and your families are here to support you. But if you try to avoid the work, if you don't set those priorities and do them when you need to, you're not going to have the outcomes you want. So we need you to engage fully and know that this process will be work, but the rewards will be great for you as well. Finally, this process is about being a learner. You have so much to learn in the next 2 years. No matter what you're walking in tonight thinking you may know about college or what you hope to do, I really want you to know there's a lot more that you can learn, and it will make the process the richer for it. We're gonna ask you to think about what you want, what your hopes and dreams are for the future, and think about pathways to get yourself to them. We want you to think about different kinds of colleges. And when I say colleges, I need you to actually think about learning environments. I'm not worried about the name of the college you want to look at yet, but I'd love to know, are you excited by a large research university with huge labs and huge dorms and lots of things going on? Or would you feel better in maybe a small liberal arts environment, smaller classes, really great relationships with professors, great opportunities, but not where you have to manage that size and some of that noise? We're going to ask you, how do you like to learn? Are you a guy who loves the Harkness tables here in our English classes? Or would you rather spend every single day in a lab? So we're going to ask you lots of questions about how you like to learn so we can find you colleges to suggest that give you those. That includes what you would need and like from a learning community. That could be, I'm fine going to big lectures and getting my work done on my own. It could be small group work. It could be learning support in some way that you really want to continue. All those things are important to your process. We're going to ask you to learn about the changing college admissions landscape today. It will come as no surprise to any of you, given what's in the media, that colleges are getting more applications today than they've ever gotten, and they're having to make tougher and tougher choices and admit fewer and fewer students. So sometimes when a family comes in, they may say, oh my gosh, I know Johnny can get into this college, and we have to share. Actually, their admissions rate is quite challenging now. My favorite example of this is Northeastern. When I started doing college counseling 15 years ago, just about all my kids who wanted to go to Northeastern went to Northeastern. Northeastern is now in single-digit acceptance numbers, has hot programs that everyone on the East Coast is seeking to enter, and is quite challenging. And that's been in a really short frame of time. So be open to hearing about how the admissions landscape may be different than what you thought it was as you entered the process. We're going to ask you to learn to manage yourself in the process. And we're going to ask you to think about how you can present the strongest picture of yourself. When you came in as a ninth grader, we said, at the end of this in your college process, you're going to have to tell your own story. And what's that story that you want to be? We're going to help you craft that story and the way you deliver it to make sure colleges hear all about what you bring to the table. Okay? So lots to learn, but if you can keep those sort of mindsets in your head, you will be in great shape for the rest of the process. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Burnett, and she's going to tell you more helpful information about this time in your year. Thanks.
Hi, all. I'm going to vamp for just a second while Ms. Barrows heads up because she's going to be changing my slides. So I hope everyone's doing great. Yes, lovely evening. Okay. So to dig into a little further what our motto, what this looks like in practice, how this manifests in our college process, let's talk about how does consideration play into evaluating a college. Again, as Mrs. Barrows mentioned, we are not talking about looking at the U.S. News and World Report and telling us that you're going to apply to the top 10 schools on U.S. News and World Report. That is not an evaluation of a college that could be a good fit for you as a learner, as a person, as a community member. So again, it is not about the name, it's not about the ranking, it's not about what your parents, friends think what they think you should be looking at as a college. So then what do you look at? How should you be considering different colleges if it's not looking at a list that has been made for you? What should you consider when researching colleges? And how do you all know, and by you all I mean each of you students individually, know what will make a good college experience for you? So one thing that we really love to point students and families to, I think particularly at this point in the process, y'all are juniors, you're just getting started thinking about this, you're upperclassmen now. Hopefully you recognize that you all have changed a lot over the past few years. I have a handful of sponsees in the room who I have known since they first set foot on campus. I know that you all have changed. Those of you who were in Morocco this summer with me on our school trip, even just in 2 weeks, you all changed a lot. And so some of this is really being reflective of the experiences you've had thus far in high school and getting to know yourself so that you can identify what it is that will make for a really positive, enriching, fulfilling college experience. And one thing that we like to point folks to, again at this point, is the Gallup Alumni Survey, or the Gallup Purdue Index, what it was formerly known as. And what this does is it surveys over several years graduates of colleges across the country, and it asks them a series of questions about what made their experience in college successful. And so, how do you measure that? If it's not given to you in a list or a ranking, how do you measure that? How do you assess that? And they really tried to get into and dig into how students at a huge range of institution types who identified as different types of learners, who wanted different things out of their college experiences, how did they identify and label their success as college students? So they looked at a whole bunch of different things in again, this series of surveys. The common themes that came back year over year over year hopefully will resonate in some way with each of you, either now or throughout your search process, as again you start to figure out what series of colleges, handful of colleges on a balanced list could be a good fit for you. And these are some of the themes. Students who were talking about a successful college experience, they said that they connected with a professor or mentor while in college. Now, you may not recognize it, but going to a school like US for high school means that you are in an unusual learning environment. Your classes are 12 or 13 or 14 students. You get to sit and chat with your teacher after class, or you know exactly where they are during your free block and their free block. You get to engage with them. You get close mentorship, be it through student groups, through your sponsorship, our sponsoring program. You have mentors in this building, and that's not always built in. Sometimes students really have to go out of their way to seek it out. You all get that baked into your high school experience. And I imagine that in some way or another, each of you has benefited from that throughout the past few years. And so if you can recognize how you've benefited from that, how that has helped you grow over the past few years, that can help maybe inform how you prioritize that when you're doing a college search. Students also identified that the ability to conduct an internship, research, a long-term project, some form of applied learning that lasted more than one semester, so in a sustained way, also helped make for a really valuable college experience. So what that means is when you start thinking about college, maybe you're looking at schools that have co-op programs where you actually get to alternate semesters where you're taking classes and then you're working full-time and getting paid and getting experience and getting some on-the-job experience and mentorship. It might mean asking questions of an institution, saying, okay, so you're a Research One institution, you have 10 Nobel laureates on your faculty, but what does that mean for me as an undergraduate? What does that mean as a new student who's really excited because I did a Sternad my junior and senior years in high school? How do I get to continue that? Will I get shut out, or are those opportunities reserved for grad students or postdocs and not for first-year students who are fresh onto campus? Students also identified that a successful college experience happened more often when they were deeply involved with activities on campus. Again, you're in an environment that is rife with activities, with opportunities to engage in your community here within these walls and the broader communities that you are a part of. And that too can mean talking to students, really figuring out not that, okay, this school has 500 clubs, but maybe, wow, this school has open enrollment in clubs, which means they don't have audition processes, or they don't turn students away, or they have leadership development baked into the cake. Again, if this is important to you, any of these factors, it's about asking some more probing questions as you start to look at schools and talk to current college students as you figure out what is most important to you. Students also reported that the ability to utilize the resources of a career planning or services office on campus was key. I know a handful of you are probably already thinking about what you might want to major in. You might be completely undecided, which I'm a big fan of. I love our undecided friends. But a career planning office can really help shape and guide your path as they learn about you and you learn more about yourself and your academic and professional interests. And then students, another big theme, recurring theme, was that students saw their college as inclusive and as having diversity within the community. This can mean a lot of different things, and now more than ever, it can be very loaded, especially after the SCOTUS ruling in June. Think about what matters to you, not just in the community, but in the institution. How does the institution telegraph their values? Are they making their institution that has historically excluded and marginalized certain populations? Are they prioritizing enrolling those students? Are they making it a warm and welcoming place? Do they prioritize financial aid to make it accessible for students from lower income backgrounds? All of those things, whether they apply specifically to you and your identities, can tell you so much about the community and the values of the institution that you are essentially assessing. You're trying it on for size and seeing whether those values align with yours. So as you are starting to go through some of these themes, and we've talked about some of these questions, we have a guide on MyUS with some suggested questions for self-reflection, and then also for questions that you can be asking to your friends who have enrolled, your siblings who are currently enrolled at college. Again, don't compare your admission process to those people, but certainly ask them about their experiences and ask these types of questions as you are, again, thinking about your hierarchy of needs, so to speak, as you are starting to look into different campus communities. So again, these are some just questions that you can be thinking about and also thinking about not just your priorities, but assessing, okay, how do you get at this? A campus tour guide is gonna tell you one thing, a sibling's gonna tell you another thing, an admission officer is gonna tell you maybe something, and they're all versions of the reality, but I think it's also a matter of not just knowing what questions to ask, but trusting your sources, knowing which sources you go to for which information, so that you can be asking these questions of the institution and of its campus community. Another great way to learn about a school in a somewhat less filtered way, read the student newspaper. If, as you start going on campus tours, you might be able to pick up hard copies of student newspapers. They're all online. But check it out. See what students are writing about. What are they outraged about? What are they protesting? What are they excited about? If sports are important to you and you don't follow, like, you know, you're not accustomed to having a really awesome women's soccer team because we don't have that here, but you want to know more about the women's soccer program at an institution. Student newspaper is a great way to learn about a lot of different aspects of campus life from the perspectives of students who are currently enrolled. So these two are questions that are more inward that you should be thinking about as you get to know yourself in the context of this process. Again, all of you have changed a lot over the course of high school, and that's a good thing. And hopefully, as you have changed, you've gotten to know yourself a little bit more and become a little more attuned to what it is that you might want in your college experience. And so again, we have this on MyUS, just some questions of self-reflection. We'll also be going through this. This will inform a lot of how we get to know you. So we'll talk a little bit more about timeline and what that process looks like, but certainly as you are asking these questions of yourself, we're gonna be asking you these questions too. So this is planting the seed a little bit to be thinking about these things now, because we're gonna ask and we're gonna really try to get to know so that we can best be in your corner and really support you. In that vein, your counselor, one of us, which you'll find out soon, we are in your corner, we are on your team. And so really understanding, again, going back to the privilege and opportunity of going to a school like US, we are here to support you, to get to know you, to ask you those probing questions, to learn about you, and to guide you. We are professionals in this space. We are the experts. We have read thousands of applications collectively at institutions of higher learning, some of which you might want to attend. And we have a lot of experience and insights. And so we are so excited to get to know you and to be able to apply that knowledge, that expertise, and help inform, hopefully, your process. And I know one parent coming in said that they were already stressed out, and I really hope that our role is helping to assuage some of that stress and not add to it. But we are truly here to be an advocate for your student as best we can. So count us amongst those people who are truly in your corner and are advocating for you. Another part of that, as Mrs. Barros referred to, is to communicate openly and honestly. And some of these conversations that we have over the course of this process, are tough. They can be hard to hear. They can be stressful, yes, but it is our job to be candid and to be open and to share our perspective, again, given the backgrounds we have working on both sides of the desk, so to speak. But to really be open and honest with each of you in a way that's supportive and also really thinking clearly about your process and your risk. Final thing, this is not going to be the final time you hear us say this. We can't do this process for you. So when we send you emails, we want you to respond. When we give you a checklist, we want you to work through the checklist and do the steps. I did have a student this morning tell me that he knows someone who writes college essays. It is really, really apparent when someone who is not a teenage boy has written an essay purporting to be written by a teenage boy. So please, please, please know that we cannot do this for you. No one else can do this for you either. This is your work. Your application is a representation. It might feel like it's incomplete, but we do our best. But it is a representation of you and who you are. Again, you will find out which of the four of us you'll be working with in November. So we're getting through our big push toward November 1, which is a big deadline in our world, with our current senior class. And we'll keep working with them through, really through graduation in a lot of cases. But you all will start working with us, and we'll talk more about timeline in just a bit. So really quickly, again, with the motto piece. So as far as loyalty goes, that loyalty is to this institution and to your classmates. And this extends, it might seem like I'm talking just to the students, but also to the parents and guardians in the room. Let's not talk trash about each other's lists and the schools they're considering or make passing comments, because truly this is so individualized. This world is changing so rapidly year to year, and we are doing, trust that that your son and your son's classmates are doing their best to navigate this process with honesty, integrity, thoughtfulness, and that their counselor is doing the same and working really hard to find a place that they will go after this incredible experience and have another highly successful college experience. So be good to each other. Please, please be good to each other. Be good to your friends. Be good to the people who you are not friends with, because that too can really, really be tough in this small environment. And then we just really encourage you to stay open-minded, not just about your peers, but really about yourself, about what you might learn about yourself in this process and what you might end up at. And hopefully this is a real process of growth and opportunity. And so if you're open-minded, you are keeping yourself open to lots of different possibilities that maybe you just didn't know of while you're sitting here in October 2023. All right, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Q.
Hi, everybody. I'm Miss Q. I'm a little shorter than Ms. B, so pardon me while I adjust my situation up here. So we're going to shift gears a little bit. We're going to talk sort of in the same vein of the motto with responsibility. I'm going to very much high level go through a kind of what's coming down the road for you, what to expect in terms of timeline and what things are going to look like. I promise you, as we've already said tonight, this will not be the last time that you hear this information from us. But this is sort of just to look at kind of what's coming down the road. So the first sort of few slides here are a little bit about things that you can start to think about now. Ms. B just gave us so much wonderful information about some of those questions and kicking off that introspective process. As she mentioned, we're going to ask a lot of these questions of you in a questionnaire that will come out later in November. So students start to kind of think through some of those things now. As she mentioned, it's all up in MyUS. We're happy to point you specifically to that wonderful list. When you're filling out this questionnaire, please be thorough and thoughtful in your responses. I can promise you every single one of the four of us prints out every single questionnaire. Mine are all highlighted with notes, and I go back in right now as I'm writing letters of recommendation for seniors to see the things that they told us a year ago. So take a little bit of time. It's not due until January, so please, please be thoughtful as you're filling that out. Continue to do well inside the classroom, stay involved in your extracurriculars, take on leadership roles where that's appropriate. Now that you are upperclassmen, there's potential for you to be a co-head of an organization or potentially a captain, and those are things that will also come in the next year, but continue to sort of flex those muscles, if you will, and above all, continue to get good grades and do well inside the classroom. The next thing that you can start to think about is going to be standardized testing. Ms. Overton is going to cover this in just a few minutes, so we're going to kind of gloss over this one a little bit because she's really going to give us the lowdown there. So I promise there will be more information about this shortly. The next thing that you can start to think about is doing a few college visits, whether that is in person or virtual. Because of COVID, every single college was forced to put materials online, whether that is a recorded virtual tour or virtual information sessions. Colleges will do model classes with faculty on Zoom or like individual chit chats with students. Take advantage of this. You don't have to fly to California or Texas or the UK to learn about a college there. You can very much attend something virtually and still get a good amount of information about that school, about their students, and what might be available to you. We have a list in MyUS of some one-tank trips. So it's colleges within a certain radius of the Cleveland area. It's broken down for you sort of by kind of the length of time it may take you to get somewhere. I think the most important thing in my opinion, right now, is not necessarily about visiting a college that you think you might be in love with. It's more about visiting any college. Go to Case's campus, go to Kent State, go to Worcester. Even if you don't want to be 25 minutes from home, going on any of those campuses will teach you things that you are excited about in a college campus or things that you absolutely do not want in a college campus. So taking the time, if you have a free Saturday or Sunday, most colleges are offering things on the weekends or a night after school. Take a little bit of time, visit those campuses. Even if it's not an official tour, walk around, get a feel for it. People are typically nice on college campuses. Ask a few questions of a current student if you're, lost or walking around, whatever. I think it's helpful just to get a feel for what a campus might look like. And again, even if you don't want to be that close to home, potentially, it will give you an idea of things that then, when you're matched with your counselor and we're ultimately talking about building a list, we can pull from that and we can find other colleges that may have these specific things that you're excited about. So take a little bit of time and start to think about that in the coming months. One of the most important pieces, and potentially, to Ms. B's point, uncomfortable pieces of this process is going to be talking about money. It's never easy or comfy in any capacity with any family. I think the most important thing that you all can do as a family unit right now is start to have these conversations. It is a lot easier for us when we start to build a list going in knowing that you're going to be looking for schools in the state of Ohio or schools where they're maybe going to offer you some merit aid or something like that. That's incredibly helpful for us to get out ahead of those things. We don't want to build you a list of schools that are super, super not feasible for you all as a family financially, right? So the earlier that you can start to have these conversations, parents and guardians, be candid with your student about what savings might look like, what might be feasible, what are we hoping for out of a college experience, will they have to take out student loans, things like that. It's incredibly helpful if by the time we're meeting with your student and meeting with you all as a family, that ball has already started rolling. Otherwise, we will bring it up pretty candidly. That's our job to do so. So the earlier that you can get out ahead of that so that the first time we're talking about it isn't in a family meeting in the spring is very, very helpful. And again, to Ms. B's point, this is one of those places where you all as a family need to be incredibly candid with each other and then with us as well. We're a part of this process. We're an advocate for you all, and we want to make sure that we're finding you a match, not only in terms of your fit and your interests, but also in terms of what's going to be financially feasible for you for the next 4 years. Our government has decided to make a new FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid. We're hoping this is not going to affect you all in any capacity. The timeline for our current senior class is a little bit pushed back. When we have more information about what this is going to look like for you all, we will let you know. That's probably going to be in January when we meet again as a big group. But we just wanted to let you know that some things will be changing, and you might have heard the word on the street about that. So as soon as we have more context and info, we will keep y'all posted. Okay, so in the winter of this year, your junior year for y'all, I guess winter 2024 technically, this is when this process really starts in earnest for you. So we're gonna have a kickoff meeting in this room, 7 p.m. on Thursday, January 4th. Save the date, put it in your calendar now if you would like. And we will be going even much more in depth about what sort of the year and a half from January 2024 will hold for you all. So we would love for you to attend. Similar to this presentation, it will be recorded and it will be posted in MyUS if for some reason you have a conflict that evening. As I mentioned, students will need to submit the junior questionnaire. You'll get that from your respective counselor, typically in late November. After that meeting in early January, we will send a parent-guardian questionnaire. We would love for you to fill it out. It's so fun for us to hear what you think about your kid. And that was one of my favorite parts of this process, is learning what the parents think, and kind of all of the parents said, I cried reading a parent questionnaire this year. It was very beautiful. Maybe that tells you how emotional I was feeling that day, but they were so wonderful and wrote so beautifully about their child. So please, again, take a little bit of time to fill that out if that's something that you're able to do. And then starting in January, we will individually meet with your student first in January and February. And then once we've had sort of an introductory meeting with your student, then we will open it up for a family meeting. It's important to us to get to know your kid one-on-one a little bit before we bring you all in. So you'll be hearing more about that from us, but just know that we'd like to meet with your child first. And we do welcome, meeting with the families, but we just want to make sure we can get with your kid first. Okay, so in sort of around that same timeline, January, February, we will provide a list of initial college suggestions. And this is very much a jumping off point. This is not the end all be all of where your child will be applying to college. This is just a space for us to say, hey, you like this place? These 5 other places look kind of similar. Why don't you check these out? And this is a really great space for the students to start doing some research. Figure out, okay, why do I like this college? Is it because I know the name? Or can we employ some of those strategies that Ms. B talked about in thinking about why am I excited about this place, right? So do I know enough about this school, positive or negative, to keep it or remove it from my list? So just ultimately a jumping off point. Starting in the second semester, you all will have mandatory college counseling class. We are excited to get to hang out with you once a rotation. You learn a lot of valuable information in that class. Please be there on time. Thank you in advance. You will also be getting some regular communication from us. We try to streamline our emails as much as we possibly can. I know everyone gets a lot of emails, and so we try to be thoughtful about that. This will not be the last time you hear this from us. Please read our emails, both parents and students. It's incredibly helpful when we're sending you stuff out via email that you take a look at that, respond if it's necessary, etc. Okay, kind of transitioning into spring of your junior year, you'll still be in college counseling class with us. You will still be doing thorough research of colleges, thorough being the word that I would like you to emphasize in that sentence. Over spring break or weekends in the spring, if it's available to you and you want to start taking some in-person college visits, please do so, or continue to visit some schools virtually. In the spring, we'll also meet with you individually to talk about course registration. I know that many of you did that this year as well, so thank you for meeting with us during that process. We'll continue to talk through sort of what the next few months beyond spring will look like, what will be expected of you over the summer, stuff like that. So you'll get a lot of information from us about the sort of continuation of the timeline. And then the main thing to think about in the spring, or one of the things, as I've listed like 12 of them for you to prioritize, one of them will be thinking about some standardized testing. So I'm gonna pass it over to Ms. Overton to chat a little bit about standardized testing and bring us home.
So I have the great good fortune to talk to you about everybody's favorite topic, which is standardized tests. Yay. So this is a place where the landscape has changed a whole lot due to COVID mostly. And that's because so many people were not able to take an SAT or ACT in order to submit them to their colleges where they were applying. I will also say, though, that there was a movement already afoot in colleges, or really in society in general, about the value of these standardized tests. There was a lot of concern that they're really just not fair. They're highly correlated with income, all sorts of other things, and whether they actually are good predictors of success at college. So I think what happened during COVID really sort of shook things up, and they're still sort of settling down now. So for this class, those students who are seniors, for most institutions, they are what we're calling test optional, meaning if you took the SAT or ACT, you could submit your scores, and they will review them. If you don't want to submit your scores, either you didn't take them or you didn't like your scores, you don't have to submit them, and they will review your application without them. And it's a surprise to many colleges, perhaps, that they can do a fine job evaluating students without seeing those standardized test scores. So they are saying if they are optional, they're truly optional. If you don't submit them, it doesn't hurt you. So we'll need to stay tuned about how this is going to pan out for students in the junior class. I think there's a lot of research being done right now about just how predictive these tests were for the people who submitted them, or any number of things about this sort of how well students are doing in college who were not submitting the scores. So stay tuned on that. We'll be on top of that as much as we can and let you know. Some schools, besides being test optional, are what are called test flexible, and that doesn't apply to us so much. It might be where they allow you to submit a different set of tests. So, for example, a lot of people go to schools that have the International Baccalaureate curriculum, the IB, so they might allow you to submit your predicted grades in place of an SAT or ACT, or maybe even AP scores. There aren't too many of these schools that are test flexible. There are some that are test blind, which means even if you submit your scores, you're very happy with them, lucky you, they won't even look at them. So that's what's considered test blind. So again, stay tuned. We'll see what happens for the class of 2025. What we are recommending is that you do plan to take the tests, because you might need to submit them. And also, you might just actually be a student who benefits from test scores being submitted. You're a good test taker. And you will have something very positive to add to your application portfolio. So we're recommending that you do plan to take one of the standardized tests. So there are two main tests. I think most people here should be pretty familiar with them, the SAT and the ACT. It used to be the case that the SAT was sort of popular on the coast and the ACT was sort of more popular in the middle of the country, but now really what happens is that people sort of figure out which test suits them better, and where they're going to do the best job, and then they take that test at least twice and submit the scores for that test, either the SAT or the ACT. They are seen as equal. I mean, colleges do not prefer one test over the other. If they want you to submit standardized test scores, the ACT or the SAT is just fine. So you can figure out which is the better test for you by doing a couple of practice tests online. Some people work with tutors or test prep agencies that help you sort of diagnose this, and they can help you figure out which is the better test for you. So then when you figure that out, you should focus on one or the other. So the SAT, I bet for some of you here, it's like giving you bad, like the heebie-jeebies maybe, you know, but it is still scored out of 1,600. There are two sections to it: the evidence-based reading and writing test. If you're old enough, you'll remember this used to be called the verbal part of the SAT. It's scored out of 800. And then there's the math test, which is just a math test. It's also scored out of 800. There is no longer a writing test to the SAT, so that's just gone completely. And another thing that's disappeared are the subject tests. Sometimes we're called the SAT-2 subject test, but those don't exist any longer anymore. So just the SAT with evidence-based reading and writing, that's a mouthful, and the math sections. There will be a new SAT coming for your class. And what's new about it is that it is being delivered online, or you could call it a digital test as well. All right, so no more paper and pencil test, filling in those bubbles like that. It's going to be on a laptop or on a tablet. Also, it will not be something that's taken at home. I think there was, for a while, some sense that maybe it would be something you could almost take on demand, but that's not true. It will be taken in a test center. And the last time the paper-based SAT will be given is in December of this year. I think the test date is December 2nd. After that, the next test is March, and that will be the online SAT. So if you've not taken the SAT yet, we're suggesting just wait until the March test to do it. But if you've taken the paper-based SAT already and you want to have another one to compare it with, then you might go ahead and take the December one or maybe even the November one. But for the most part, most of you, we think, probably should be starting with the March test. The PSAT, the practice SAT, that we will be giving in school on October 11th will be the digital, the online test. So you will get some practice in a couple of weeks. Not even a couple of weeks, actually. Okay. So one thing that's new about those digital tests is that they are adaptive. And what that means is, depending on how you answer some questions, the next part of the test will adjust. So there are sort of two parts to the evidence-based reading and writing test. The first part is the one everybody gets. If you answer a whole lot of those questions, you do really well on it. The second part will be sort of a harder test. If you don't do so well, you miss a whole lot of questions, you'll get a second part that's easier. And then there's a middle version as well. Same thing holds true for the math test. The first part everybody gets, it's the same. If you do super well, you get the hardest version. As the second piece, there's sort of a middle of the road one and then one that's a little easier too. So it's somewhat different from what you've had as the, most of us parents here are familiar with the paper-based test. The online test will be a little bit shorter, so that's one good thing. It's 45 minutes shorter, be closer to 2 hours than the current 3 hours. Okay. So the ACT. Oh, sorry, yes. Okay, that was a very important point. Sorry, I missed that. So a school day SAT on March 11th. You'll hear a lot more. Yeah, stay tuned on that one too. So the ACT, there are 4 sections: English, math, reading, and science. There's also a writing section still, but that's optional. I can't think of any college that actually requires you to take the writing test any longer. So, you know, generally that's probably not going to be necessary, but it's always wise to check, and these things can change. So yeah, colleges are often changing their testing policies, but most likely you'll want to take just the basic ACT without the optional writing part of it. Each section is scored out of 36. And then those sub-scores, each of those 4 sub-scores, are averaged to get a composite score, which will then be out of 36 as well. The ACT is given in December, February, April, June, and or July are all those test dates that you can possibly do. So they're on specific dates. You need to look them up. Just look at act.org. You get the dates there, and you can plan your schedule around that. We will be offering a free ACT prep course at school during January and February on Wednesday mornings when there's a late start. So look for information there that we'll be sending out about how to sign up for that. You can get some free test preparation on those late start Wednesdays in January and February. Is this exciting yet or what? So I think I said this already. Everybody should plan to take the test twice. There's definitely a practice effect, maybe 3 times, but absolutely, you know, like not more than that. Then, you know, there's really diminishing returns there. So typically, people would probably try to do it twice before senior year starts in September, and then maybe once more fall of your senior year. So again, you want to get this on your schedule and make a plan, because weekends are super busy. So you see this up here. You'll get this presentation in MyUS as well. We don't expect you to remember all these dates, but 2 sittings of the SAT in December, March, May, or June, and then 2 sittings of the ACT, December, February, April, June, or July. Colleges will always use the best score that you got on either the SAT or the ACT. Sometimes they super score, which is, say you took the SAT twice and your evidence-based reading and writing score was higher on one test sitting and your math test was higher on a different sitting. They put them together. That's called a super score. This policy will change from college to college, but I think most do, and partly it's because it helps them look better too when they have these higher scores that they report out to the public. The ACT is a little harder to super score, but some colleges do that as well. So again, you'll just have to check at the colleges that you apply to see what their policy is on that. There's a lot more information about standardized testing in MyUS. If you go to the college counseling section, you can see Guide to Standardized Testing 2023-24. And there's lots of links for free resources about preparing for this. Khan Academy is a great one for the SAT, for example. It's sort of, your PSAT is sort of a diagnostic tool, and they give you tailor-made information about how to improve your score based on what you did on the PSAT. If any of you are needing accommodations, like extra time, you would want to talk to Ms. Redwanski about that, and she can help you set up the accommodations for non-standard testing. Juniors here, and there aren't a whole lot of students that I see, are familiar with the Maya learning platform. You've been using it in your junior leadership classes. This is the platform that we use to support the college research and college application process. So students will be using the account that they've already got. Parents, you will have access to this as well. And it's a great sort of all-in-one place to sort of organize the research, links to various helpful information. One of the things that's really great about Maya is that it has past information about students who've applied to a particular college from university school. It's only the most basic information. It's GPA and standardized test scores on a grid, on a graph, and then there's a scattergram, and you can see where you fall and what the decisions were for students who've been in the past 4 classes, whether they were admitted, waitlisted, deferred, denied, et cetera, and you can see how you would compare with them based on your GPA and standardized test scores. So that's a helpful tool. There are different sort of inventories about your style of learning, that sort of thing. It's a great resource. You can start working on that now and tool around in there and see what you come up with. But we'll be using it a lot during our college counseling classes and also individually with each student. So I think I've actually already said this about we'll just be using this platform together. Do you remember Naviance, maybe? This is kind of the replacement for Naviance. Yeah, it's easier to use, and there's a lot more information on it too. So it's also what we use to actually send the school's part of the application to colleges. So it's the vehicle through which we send teacher recommendation letters, counselor recommendation letters, the transcript, the profile of university school. Yeah, it gets linked to the Common Application. It links. Not every college is on the Common Application. This is some nitty-gritty that we'll get to a bit. Yeah, oh, okay, right. Okay, so if you haven't paid attention to anything tonight, actually, you all look like you're paying a lot of attention, so that's great. Pay attention to this slide. This is what you want to do now, okay? So determine what your standardized testing schedule is going to be and start registering for it online. Usually you need to register about a month in advance of the test date. It's possible sometimes to register late, but you pay more money. You want to avoid that as much as you can because this whole process is expensive. Okay. It really is. All right. You want to start exploring different types of colleges. We talked about those one-tank trips. I don't know if it was clear that one tank means one tank full of gas, right? So you should be able to get there and back in one tank full of gas. But now we have electric cars, so maybe, I don't know. We'll have to call something else. Correct. So we do not register you.
The students should do it.
Yeah, good point. Students should register themselves, although they will need a credit card to do that, so maybe. Yeah, okay. So you should be doing some of these virtual visits. Go online, as Ms. Q said. There is so much more online, easily accessible, again, partly due to COVID. So, really take good advantage of that. Lots of colleges are keeping track of demonstrated interest. And I'm not encouraging you to just do things to show you're interested only. The point would be to do it so that you get the information and you have good information to make your decisions with. But if you do watch a campus tour online, or you see a presentation that might be in real time, they can sometimes keep track of whether you've done this or not, almost as good perhaps as an in-person campus visit. So do make good use of those resources there. If you're taking a trip, maybe you're going somewhere for the winter holiday or spring break. Next summer seems like a long ways away here. Maybe even for Thanksgiving. If there's a college in the area, maybe you stop by and see it. Incorporate that into your vacation plans. It's what we do for fun, too. Always a good part of your vacation. All right. We are hosting a number of representatives from colleges on campus this month and in October and in the beginning part of November. And if a junior has a free class when they are visiting, you are welcome to join us. So you should be looking at the schedule for who's coming when, and then sign up if you're not in a class at the same time that they're visiting. So that might be a good way to get started as well. Look at MyUS, where there's a section on knowing yourself, and start thinking about those big questions. And then, we already said this probably 5 times, but start talking about finances now, so nobody's surprised later. Okay. So there are a whole bunch of resources on MyUS. We hope you make good use of those. We'll keep them updated as we go. What we'd like to do now is thank you for coming, and also invite you to step outside in the hallway with us, and we can answer your individual questions there. We found that's a little more helpful than sort of the big whole session. So find any one of us, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. It's been a pleasure to get started. Have fun. Thank you.